Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. The DILG has suspended government work and classes tomorrow and has ordered forced evacuations due to the bad weather. But we could be bracing for more rainy days. Another tropical depression has emerged, while two low-pressure areas could also develop into cyclones.
And where there is rain, there's flood. And there's that question again. Whatever happened to the flood control programs of both local and national governments? We'll try to get answers from LGUs and the MMDA tonight.
And Filipino-American leaders are raising the alarm over what they call unjust immigration practices in the United States. They cite as one example the forcible removal of legitimate Pinoy workers from a cruise ship who all had valid U.S. visas on them.
Day in a row, the Department of the Interior and local government announced the suspension of classes and government work. That's for tomorrow, July 23. 30 places are on the DILG's list, including the Ilocos provinces, Abra, La Union, Benguet, Pangasinan, Tarlac, Nueva Ecija, Zambales, Bulacan, and Bataan. The same goes for Metro Manila, Laguna, Rizal, Batangas, Quezon, Marinduque, Camarines Sur, Albay, Catanduanes, Sorsogon, and Masbate.
School and government work are likewise suspended for Romblon, the Mindoro provinces, Palawan, Antique, Negros Occidental, Guimaras, and Cavite. The DILG has also ordered forced evacuations in areas affected by the southwest monsoon. This is to ensure the safety and protection of residents, especially children and the elderly, as well as persons with disabilities. Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla ordered the Philippine National Police and the Bureau of Fire Protection to enforce the mandatory evacuations. He also directed LGUs to coordinate with their regional disaster officials and the DSWD for relief distribution.
Meantime, one of the low-pressure areas being monitored by Pagasa has developed into a cyclone. Tropical depression Dante was last spotted over the sea east of northern Luzon and is currently moving north-northwestward at 20 kilometers per hour. No wind signals have been hoisted yet. This afternoon, Tuesday, July 22, Dante has started blowing strong to gale force gusts over Zambales, Bataan, Metro Manila, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, the entire Visayas, and the Dinagat Islands, coupled with incessant rainfall from the enhanced southwest monsoon or habagat. For the most part, Dante will stay at sea until it exits the Philippine Area of Responsibility on Friday. But there is the possibility of intensification to tropical storm and up to severe tropical storm category before it leaves PAR. As of 5 p.m., Pagasa is also monitoring another low-pressure area which is near land at 155 kilometers east-southeast of Pasco, Batanes. According to the State Weather Bureau, the LPA has a medium chance of developing into a tropical depression. If this happens, it will be named Emong. There's a second LPA also that could turn into a cyclone. This is east of Visayas, although it is still outside the Philippine Area of Responsibility. It will be called Fabian once it enters PAR.
Thousands had to be evacuated in Quezon City due to massive flooding brought about by the habagat rains. Let's get updates from the Chief of Quezon City's Disaster and Risk Reduction Management Department, Maria Bianca Perez. Good evening. Welcome to the Big Story.
Good evening, ladies.
Tell us what areas were most affected in Quezon City.
In Quezon City, starting July 19, we have been flooded in 68 different barangays, but more so in 31 priority barangays that we had advised for pre-evacuation. These barangays are those along lying the Tulyahan Riverway and the San Juan Riverway and along the San Mateo Marikina rivers. So all these 31 barangays were the ones that we had prioritized to conduct preemptive evacuation, and thus they were also the ones who were heavily affected during the flooding that occurred. But that does not discount also the flooding that also occurred in all over 51 barangays who reported evacuation um, during the entire weather disturbance.
So tell us, no casualties, that at least we can be thankful for. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, we still have three missing persons who are under investigation, and we have one that we have confirmed that we have retrieved from another city, but it flowed to Navota City. The one missing person that we were looking for was just identified to in Navota City. So apparently the body floated there. So we have at least one confirmed death.
Okay, Bianca, I would just like to ask, no, compared to the rainy season in the past, rainy seasons in the past, were there any new areas na biglang binaha na dati hindi naman binabaha? There have been reports, of course, online, and I just wanted to validate. For example, around the areas no, sa may Commonwealth, kung nasan yung MRT 7, was the water really diverted to somewhere else and nag-cause ng new flooded areas?
In an inspection conducted by our city engineers along with the MMDA, we have identified that that the drainages there were clogged and were diverted, and the storm waters that normally recede in those areas have been diverted elsewhere in the main road because of the some of the construction some of construction materials related to the um, MRT construction we're plugging the drainages. But we are still investigating this, and we're studying if that is the lone and the only contributor to the additional flooding that we have experienced in that area.
Well, Bianca, until now, would you say marami pa rin ang nagpaparescue? And how fast does a Quezon City DRRMO respond to requests like that? And what would you say are some of the biggest challenges you're facing on the ground?
So far, we have recorded 204 um, emergency incidents during this weather disturbance, and 158 of those were requests for rescue. I can say that we were able to complete all those rescue operations in the duration of 6 hours, but I cannot say in particular just how fast we are, because our focus then was that we had to evacuate them before we so that we could lessen yung rescue operations. So we had to avoid yung mismong pag-rescue during the peak of the rainfall, because it risk yung ating mga responders. So and as a result, parang more than 6 hours na nasa labas yung ating mga responders, and in each incident and rescue operation, hindi lang naman siya yung isa-isa na kinukuha yung mga families, but talagang sinusuyod nila yung bawat streets na dinadaanan nila sa bawat takbo. So I can say naman that at least last night, we were able to complete all 158 requests for rescue, so within 6 hours, and all of them were reported to be safe.
So Bianca, yung Tulyahan River talagang tuwing may mahabang pag-ulan, matagal na pag-ulan, talagang nag-overflow yung Tulyahan River. Hindi ba? I mean, we've seen that happen again and again.
Yes. Of course, lalo na ngayon kasi the La Mesa Dam reached its spilling level, which did not occur even during Karina. So yung mga yung mga households nearby Tulyahan were also submerged But thankfully, we were able to also evacuate them in time. And those that we had to rescue were those na mga nagpaiwan during the first operation of evacuation. So that yun yung easily avoidable pero still inevitable kapag may mga resistant pa rin for evac.
Okay.
How has the culture changed? No? Have people been more receptive to preemptive evacuations? I mean, clearly there's still some, no? 158 requested rescue. But what's your assessment?
I dare say na it's improved because in Karina, we received 864 requests for rescue. And we had similar, and we had somewhat a similar scenario that the heavy rainfall persisted through the night. And it was a bit of a surprise also. I mean, not really a surprise, but we had a very short lead time for the heavy rainfall. So I believe and I want to believe that the people also learned that compared to the 864 that we had to rescue last year, many people, many others already evacuated early. Pero hindi pa rin naging zero, meron pa rin 158, but still, it's still a big improvement from the 864 we had to respond to last year.
But we're still expecting heavy rainfall, perhaps even into the weekend. So what are you planning for our populace in Quezon City to be safe from the flooding?
So right now, we are really focused on providing the immediate necessities of our people in our evacuation centers because we have reported 27,095 individuals and 7,790 families. So our focus is to have them stay there for the meantime and to as much as possible take care of all their needs. So in anticipation of this heavy rainfall, we want to make sure that they stay in the safe spaces, safe shelters that we have provided them, and that they are taken well cared of. We are also replenishing our supplies that we have used out during the response operations. So including medicines and relief, and of course the response equipment that we have used. And we're also using the lull in the weather to have our responders rest. And since we anticipate that since many of the evacuees are already in the evacuation centers, we anticipate that there's not much rescue operations that's going to be happening soon already because all of the people are already safely and are already safe in the evacuation centers. But still, we are replenishing our supplies, letting our people rest, and taking care of our people in the evacuation centers.
Well, Bianca, that's good to hear because July is also the month of national disaster resilience. But I also wanted to ask for those residents who don't have access anymore to online communication, how can they get in touch with the Quezon City government for assistance and alerts?
So we have a helpline, QC helpline 122. So all emergency concerns can be directed there. So if there is any rescue operations, so all of what I mentioned earlier, the 158 rescue operations, we got it from the QC helpline 122. So it's a one-time, it's an all-around hotline for all needs for the city.
And as Ces and Pao mentioned, this is only the beginning. No, sunod-sunod na bagyo ang asahan natin na parating. Bianca, how is QC in terms of resources? Handa naman kayo? Meron namang mga funds na nakatabi na for this?
As we are prepared, that we are able to mobilize 1,000 people, manpower for this response operations. And actually, we have just declared a state of calamity in the city due to the affected population due to the affected number of affected population brought about by habagat. So since we have declared the state of calamity, the barangays and the city can access the quick response fund of the local DRM fund, which amounts to the 30% 1% of the 5% budget of the city and their barangay budgets. So we have enough funds and access to additional funding that we might use to prepare and anticipate this
One-
coming rainy
one-
days.
One question before you go, Bianca. Is the Quezon City government now coordinating with the contractors of the MRT because the rains will continue, and if construction materials are indeed blocking the drainage, then we'll expect more flooding in Commonwealth?
We are constantly in coordination with the contractors of the MRT subway. And as I mentioned, this is still under investigation. We want to also cover all possible factors. It might not just be that is contributing to the flood. So we want to be sure, but of course, to be sure, we have to consult all stakeholders involved. So it's not just with the contractor, but with also the DPWH, MMDA, and of course our city engineers.
But Commonwealth was never really flooded this way before.
No, not really.
All right. Well,
Okay.
okay.
I think that's pretty much it. No? Araneta also flooded, but any plans for that? Maybe as a last word. That's a usual thing, right? But
Yeah, yes, but Mayor Joy has really targeted a flood-free city, and we are really investing and consulting with the DPWH for flood projects such as retention basins, flood interceptors, stormwater harvesting systems. So we have projects that we have developed that we are investing in, and that we are also seeking help from DPWH to help us implement. So we are really focused on making sure that we can reduce flooding in the cities more.
Bianca, sorry, before we let you go, I wanted to ask...
Or making it flood-free.
I wanted to ask about power restoration efforts
Right.
because some residents reported not having power for over 10 hours already in different parts of Quezon City. And I understand one of the reasons is because that's to give way for the search and rescue operations. It's a temporary disconnection. Is there a timetable on when power can be restored completely?
Our target is ASAP. At least we're coordinating with Meralco. They have disconnected the power for these areas because of the submerged circuit networks for the power distribution. So it's really just to make sure that people are safe when in the event of crossing the flood waters. Ngayon naman nag-subside naman yung waters. So Meralco is doing it the best doing the best that it can para bumalik yung power in these areas immediately, siguro within tonight.
Thank you very much for talking to us, Maria Bianca Perez, Chief of Quezon City's DRRM.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, Metro Manila has not seen the last of flooding yet. What's the game plan of the MMDA and who's on top of flood control? The answer when the big story returns. Keep it here.
You're watching the big story here on One News. Flooding in Metro Manila cities reached first-time levels in several areas, with floodwaters subsiding slower than usual. In Parañaque, water levels rose higher than an average person in several barangays, as shown and described in this video taken in Barangay Moonwalk. Flooding also reached the entrance of one mall. Local officials have attributed the flooding to clogged drainage systems.
Meanwhile, residents were rescued with rafts in Valenzuela. In Malabon, several roads were impassable even to large vehicles. Establishments were also forced to close. In Navotas, at least 6 barangays were also left flooded. Flooding in the Kamanava area is aggravated by the overflow of La Mesa Dam. The Metro Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, says more than 500 areas in NCR have experienced flooding since Monday. And now, as the Metro continues to drown in its perennial problem, or flooding problem, the question is what's happened to projects meant to control this? In an interview with our sister program Storycon, Finance Secretary Ralph Recto says there is always funding for such. More or less, he says the DPWH has in its budget for next year between 200 and 250 billion pesos for flood control.
We understand that we must make improvements in efficiency, in executing the budget, in choosing the right flood control projects. I think we need to focus on certain areas first where there is economic activity. Halimbawa, Metro Manila, Region 3, Region 4. That has all been discussed as well. Like I said, we have to choose the right projects with the highest multiplier, economic multiplier effect to ensure that the economy grows sustainably at a faster rate than 6%.
Now let's talk more about flood control, this time with the MMDA. And we speak with the Director of the agency's Flood Control and Sewerage Management Office, Mark Navarro. Welcome to the Big Story, sir.
Good evening po. Good evening, Ms. Beth. Good evening, Ms. John. And good evening din po, Ms. Pauline.
Let's begin
Magandang gabi po.
Magandang gabi. Let's begin po with what went wrong? Ano pong meron po bang mga defective pumping stations that didn't work?
Well, on our part po, no, yung sa part po ng MMDA, we have 71 pumping stations na kami po ang nag-ooperate at nag-maintain. That is all over Metro Manila. There are certain instances lang po na itong mga pumping stations natin ay humihinto lang po. Pamansamantala lang naman. Kasi we have to unclog the garbage na nandun po sa ating mga pumping stations. But definitely, all 71 pumping stations na ino-operate po ng MMDA and mine-maintain ay gumagana naman po.
So how long po kailangan i-declog yung mga basura bago umandar ulit yung pumping station?
Depende po, ma'am. Kasi actually, meron tayong mga pumping stations na talagang sobrang dumi po talaga, sobrang dami ng basura. Minsan inaabot po tayo ng 1 oras. Pero kung mga maliliit lang naman at kaya naman tanggalin ng mano-mano, mga 30 minutes po pwede naman po. Nagagawan po ng paraan. But definitely, nasa-stall po yung pagtrabaho ng pump natin. Mabuti na lang, nakikita rin naman po namin kaagad-agad. Mas mahirap po kasi pag pumasok na sa loob at nasira na po yung pump, yun po yung mas mahirap. But we're really trying our very best na mabantayan po lahat ito.
Okay, Sir Mark, lumang tugtugin na po itong mga basura, no? Ang siguro yung tanong talaga is, saan ba nanggagaling itong basura? And is this a result of improper disposal, hindi nako-collect on time? Saan po ba nag-originate yung trash?
Yun nga po ang masakit, lumang tugtugin na siya, but still, it is still happening. Marami po maraming kasama na po yung merong part na hindi na-kolekta, pero mas madalas po talaga yung indiscriminate po yung pagtatapon ng basura kung saan-saan, lalo na sa waterways. Bukas po, we are going to one of the pumping stations na mine-maintain namin kasi nakita namin na merong sofa, may refrigerator na nahakot yung pumping station. And
what?
Sofa na, ref na yung nakita namin. So, we really have to see and make sure na saan ba nanggagaling itong mga basura na to. And we have to stop from the source.
It really underlines the urgency of an effective waste management program and everyone cooperating, hindi po ba?
Disiplina na po talaga ang kailangan Talagang, I think it is already a shared responsibility, collective effort na ng hindi lang po yung government, lalong-lalo na po yung private. Magtulungan po tayo sa pag-call ng attention na if we really want this to stop, hindi man stop, mitigate na lang po,
Yeah.
magtulungan na po tayo to call the attention of everyone na it's not really helping.
But
Hindi lang naman po yun, pati health.
But the
Apektuhan na rin.
71 pumping stations po, adequate po ba yan? Or do we need, obviously we need more?
Yes, we recognize naman po that we need more. Meron naman pong mga ginagawa na ngayon under the project of DPWH. Kasi po yung mga pumping stations po na ginagawa is lahat po yan under DPWH. Then after a certain period, tiniturn over nila sa amin yan for operation and maintenance.
Yeah, yan yung binanggit niya sa amin, no? Nakausap kasi namin si Sec Manny Bonoan ng DPWH. Yan yung funded nung World Bank, I believe.
Opo.
Oo. Pero Sir Mark, wala ba kayong technology na nakikita or something na pwedeng gamitin na panangga around the pumping station para hindi tumuloy dun sa makinarya mismo nung pump? Itong mga malalaking debris at basura. Pwede
Actually, meron naman po, ma'am. Meron naman. May nakakalusot lang. Actually, we have trash traps naman po bago tumating sa pumping station. Kaya napipigilan din po natin yung ibang basura. Kaya lang, meron pa rin nakakalusot na mga maliliit. And yun naman po, yung nakita nating sofa at saka ref, hindi naman po yun talaga nakapasok sa pump. But we have to harvest this garbage kasi nakapasok na po dun sa compound namin. So, yun lang po. Kung wala pong trash, pumasok na po talaga sa pumping station natin ngayon.
Well, Sir
Meron
Mark,
tayong trash traps, ma'am.
Okay.
Last week, sir, nagsama po ang MMDA at ang Manila LGU sa pagbubukas ng bagong floodgate sa Manila Bay, pati na rin yung paglalagay nga ng trash trap sa Manila Yacht Club. Based on your assessment, sir, nakatulong po ba yun para maibsan yung baha nitong mga nakaraang araw?
Dati po kasi, no, based on experience po, yung Lasal, yung TAF at saka yung area na yan po, umaabot po yan hanggang tukod. Pero ngayon pong mga tag-ulan na to, kahit po tuloy-tuloy, kadalas ang ng assess na nakita namin, gutter deep lang po, 8 inches lang po. So, nakita rin po namin, meron kami mga tao na nagbantay din sa yacht club kasi para makita namin yung flow ng water. Kahit po mataas kahit po high tide sa Manila Bay, dumaan pa rin po yung tubig palabas po ng yacht club.
Pero ano po yung sinasabi ni Mayor Isko na may mga defective pumping stations? Yun ba yung sinasabi niyong tumitigil dahil maraming basura? It's not really defective or meron talagang defective?
Okay. Yung sinasabi po kasi ni Mayor Isko, no, that is, hindi po siya kasama dun sa 71 pumping station. I think napansin po kasi na merong pumping station na naitayo doon po sa May Rojas Boulevard to help ease out yung paglabas po ng tubig dito sa Manila Bay.
So who operates that?
Pero right po kasi,
who operates that? MMDA, DPWH, or?
Wala pa pong nag-ooperate kasi actually hindi pa po siya na-turn over sa amin.
I see.
Hindi pa po siya na-turn over sa amin. So, hindi po namin alam technically ang status nun kung nag-ooperate na o gumagana na. But definitely, pag siya po ay naging operational, it will help po, lalong-lalo na dyan sa area ng Ermita at Padre Paura po.
Yun nga kasi, no, Sir Mark, so merong itong pumping station in particular, hindi siya kasama dun sa 71 stations around Metro Manila. Kung titingnan natin, no, yung mga individual na proyekto na pumping station ng mga LGU, nasa ilang pumping station ba talaga ang meron natin sa NCR?
So yung sa amin po kasi ino-operate ay 71 po. Kung meron pong ginagawa, hindi po namin kasi, hindi pa nako-coordinate sa amin lahat. So, kino-coordinate lang po sa amin yan once tapos na po or ginagawa pa lang po. Pero right now, hindi pa po siya nako-coordinate, lalo na po yan tatlong sinasabi yata ni Mayor Isko. Pero there are areas na alam naman namin kasi nakikita namin na may ginagawa, gaya po nung sa QC, meron po tayong 4 dun sa Metro House District. Yun po, na makakatulong din po yun dahil mataas po ang baha ngayon din sa area na yun. So once na matapos po yun, mati-turnover po. Kung assuming ma-turnover sa amin, makakatulong po yun.
Ano naman po yung nabara ng Dolomite Beach? Meron nga bang waterway, maybe not pumping station, but daanan ng tubig sa ilalim ng Dolomite Beach that used to be handled by MMDA? Yun po ang sinabi ni Secretary Bonoan sa amin dito sa show.
Pakiulit po yung tanong, ma'am, no? Kasi hindi po clear masyado. Pakiulit po.
Yung daanan po ng tubig na natabunan ng Dolomite Beach, tama po ba na ito ay humingi kayo ng tulong according to Secretary Bonoan sa DPWH para magamit yung mga daanan ng tubig sa ilalim ng Dolomite Beach or in that area? Is that correct? Is that right?
I have to verify it, ma'am, no? Kasi technically speaking, ma'am, nung wala pa pong Dolomite Beach, meron po tayong tinatawag kasing natural flow of water. From Taft Avenue, lumalabas po yan, diretso po sa Manila Bay.
Yun nga
Diretso po yan.
Tapos,
Yun po yun.
nabara ng Dolomite
ngayon,
Beach. Nabara.
In effect po, nabarahan ng na-impede yung flow ng water. From Taft.
Okay.
Ngayon naman po, kaya nga ang ginagawa namin is pinag-aaral, ano pa ba yung mga ways para po mailabas yung tubig from Taft without, of course, without removing the Dolomite Beach.
So you asked the help of DPWH to do that?
Kasi sila po ang in charge po sa pumping station,
Alright.
sa paggawa po ng mga big ticket projects like the drainage system.
Right.
Sila po ang doon. Sila po naman ang in charge doon.
Okay. So it's clear.
So,
Sir,
sila po ang in charge doon.
Pagdating naman po dun sa sewage treatment plants o yung mga STPs, I understand that the MMDA is also hoping for additional budget for the DPWH to construct more of those STPs. Ilan po ba talaga ang kailangan in order to comply with the order of the Supreme Court na kailangan malinis yung tubig nga na nilalabas sa Manila Bay?
Well, yung STP po natin, ma'am, no, honestly, hindi rin po kami hindi rin po sa aming project ang STP. Kami lang po ngayon isa sa mga tumulong para ma-construct po yung STP na yan. Based on our mandate po, ma'am, ang sa amin po is flood management. Doon po sa mandato ng Supreme Court, based on their mandamus ruling, ang aming contribution po is flood mitigation and tumulong po sa paglinis nung area na yan, kasama po ang Dolomite Beach. Kaya po may mga nakatalatayo dyan mga kawani ng gobyerno na halos naglilinis po dyan araw-araw. Pero with regard po dun sa sinasabi nating STP, hindi po sa amin yung project na yun.
Finally, sir, Finance Secretary Recto just said that there are planned 200 to 250 billion pesos worth of flood control projects. Sa inyong palagay, kung hindi aayusin yung basura, useful ba yung magkakaroon ng ganyang bilyon-bilyon na naman na flood control na nahaharangan lang ng basura? Ano bang solusyon?
I think kasama dapat, ma'am. No? With that budget, I think we just really have to discipline na yung mga tao, i-educate na po natin. Kasama po sana yon, aside from, siyempre, building the drainage master plan that will harmonize all our drainage systems sa buong Metro Manila. Kasi kailangan na rin naman po natin mag-upgrade kasi meron po mga areas na maliliit pa rin po yung drainage system. At siyempre, alam naman po natin na kahit lumaki ang drainage system natin, if the people in Metro Manila continue to throw garbages indiscriminately kahit na yan sofa, kahit na anong laki ng drainage system mo, kung dadaan ng sofa, mahaharangan pa rin po ang drainage system. I think we really have to work hand in hand. It's going to be a shared responsibility sa mga taga-Manila po or taga-Metro Manila. It's going to be a collective effort, calling all their, tawagan na po natin ang kanilang konsensya na huwag na pong magtapon ng basura. Kasi kahit ano pong laki, kung sofa at ref ang itatapon, mahaharangan din po. So I think it will be a big help. The budget will help. But more importantly, we have to call the attention of our people.
Okay, thank you for joining the Big Story, Director Mark Navarro of the MMDA Flood Control.
Now, in other news, the Office of the Ombudsman has placed Government Service Insurance System, or GSIS President Arnulfo Veloso and 6 other officials under preventive suspension. This is over the agency's 1.4 billion peso share deal with Alter Energy Holdings Corporation. The investment in question was made in November 2023, where the GSIS, under Veloso's leadership, purchased 100 million preferred shares from Alternergy Holdings. But the investment allegedly breached several GSIS investment policy guidelines, which include Alternergy not meeting the required minimum market capitalization of 15 billion pesos for GSIS investments. Another allegation was that the perpetual preferred shares were not listed with the Philippine Stock Exchange at the time of the agreement. The investment also allegedly did not undergo the necessary internal approvals. The Ombudsman's investigation was meant to find out if there was grave misconduct and gross neglect of duty on the part of Veloso and the other officials. In a statement to the Big Story, Veloso says they acknowledge the Ombudsman's investigation into the investment and will cooperate with the investigation. Veloso went on to say that they welcome the opportunity to affirm the integrity of the GSIS's investment decisions, but with the investigation ongoing, will also refrain from additional comments at this time. The GSIS as an agency also assured its members of uninterrupted service despite the suspension of its key officials. Executive Vice President Juliet Bautista has been designated as acting president and general manager by the Board of Trustees.
We're going to be pausing for another quick break, but when we return, several Filipinos working at a cruise ship in the United States were accused of a crime and later deported. Now, community leaders are saying the charges were trumped up. That story and more when the Big Story returns. Keep it here.
Welcome back to the Big Story. Over 20 Filipinos working at a cruise ship docked in Norfolk, Virginia, have been deported for allegedly engaging in child pornography. But the workers said they were forced to admit to a crime without any evidence. In a joint statement, the Filipino Workers Center and the NAACP Virginia State Conference accused U.S. Customs and Border Protection of forcibly removing 21 OFWs at Carnival Sunshine Cruise Line. They are all valid C1D visa holders who have been sent back to the Philippines reportedly without due process. The manning agency of Carnival Sunshine confirmed in a meeting with Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Cacdac that a total of 24 seafarers have been deported in separate incidents since February. An additional 15 from other cruise ships have returned to the Philippines. Captain Antonio Ladera III, the president of Open Sea Crewing Agency, said the seafarers might have opened pornographic websites or that their contact info could have been compromised. The deported seafarers, however, insisted they were unfairly coerced.
Secretary Cacdac wrote on X this Monday that the DMW will be talking to the seafarers to provide them assistance. In a statement, U.S. Representative Bobby Scott of Virginia's 3rd District, which covers Norfolk, says he would call for an inquiry to gather more information about the CBP's recent actions. He underscored that everyone in the U.S. is entitled to due process, whatever their citizenship or immigration status is. This development comes just as President Bongbong Marcos embarks on a 3-day official visit to the United States. Before his bilateral meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, Marcos sat down with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, committing to strengthening defense ties between the Philippines and the U.S. amid geopolitical challenges. Marcos also held a closed-door meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, where they discussed regional diplomacy.
Now let's discuss the case of deported seafarers with the Filipino Workers Center of Southern California. And joining us tonight is Executive Director Aquilina Soriano Verzosa. Welcome to the Big Story. How do we call you? Aquilina.
Aquilina.
Aki?
Opo.
Aquilina?
Aki lang. Everyone calls me Aki, yes.
Aki. So Aki, tell us more about this case and how you're helping our seafarers.
Yes, actually, Filipino Workers Center, kasama kami sa Rapid Response Network in Los Angeles, where we are responding to immigration actions. And through that network, natawagan kami ng mga seafarers ng Carnival Cruise Line. They reported, and we've talked to almost all of the workers na deport from Carnival Sunshine, and they were all deported in the same way. They have been accused of having or viewing child pornography, but they are very adamant na hindi totoo, that this is not true, and that they've only been accused, they haven't been charged or convicted of any crime, and they even open up their phones and cooperate with Customs and Border Protection, and there's nothing on their phones, and yet they are still getting their visas revoked and being sent back to the Philippines.
Right now, where are they?
Nasa Pilipinas na.
Nakarating na. Okay.
Yes. Because they weren't deported in all one group. It started mula, I guess, February, but yung mga kausap namin began in April. So almost every time that the cruise ship is docking in Norfolk, CBP is taking between 1 and 9 individuals at a time. So every time they dock, natatakot talaga ang mga seafarer kasi they don't know who is going to be targeted next.
Dahil may quota sila, hindi ba? Ito ba yung bahagi ng quota na kailangan ng ICE na makamit?
That is our belief. We have seen a big change in immigration enforcement since January, and we have the new administration when they have declared a quota. And that quota has led to so many violations of basic rights in the United States. We are part of a lawsuit against ICE and DHS for constitutional rights that they are violating, both the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment, where they are stopping and detaining people based on racial profiling and not on any probable cause, which is a violation. They are detaining, arresting, and also the not allowing legal counsel. And so dito rin sa mga seafarers, they don't have any access to legal counsel through the process with CBP, and they're fully cooperating. They've been fully vetted as well. Ang dami nilang dumaan na mga processes, mga background checks before they get onto the boats. And they have been thoroughly oriented and educated by both the Philippine government as well as Carnival. So they are very, very ingat na ingat that they're clear that they're not opening up even any links that they don't know where they're coming from. So they are very clear na innocent sila, and they haven't even been given any kind of chance to clear their names. They don't have any charges, and yet they have a valid visa that is canceled and barred for the next 10 years. And napaka-devastating yun kasi then they're not able to work on the cruise ships, any cruise ship anymore for the next 10 years.
Aki, is it only happening to Filipinos that dock there in Norfolk? Kasi I understand, isang immigration office yan. That's the one there in Norfolk. Pinoys ba ang target, or are there other nationalities that are also suffering the same fate?
Well, this is a trend that is happening not only in Norfolk. All of our reports so far for Norfolk is that it's all Filipino. And we are getting reports and starting to connect sa iba pang mga seafarers sa different ports. And karamihan ng mga targeted dito or impacted are Filipino. But there are reports of others as well from other countries, like from India, from a Latin American country. So it's not only, but we also have seen the trend na it's all lower ranking positions, mga housekeepers, mga chef, mga galley attendant that are being questioned and deported. We like in Carnival Sunshine, none of the managers or supervisors are being deported.
So, Aki, what would you like to see from the Philippine government as you fight this case?
Well, we would like them to stand up for the rights of these Filipino seafarers and not be hands off just because there are charges of child pornography, because they have rights and they have the right to due process and to be able to clear their name. In the past, there have been cases na totoo, but in these cases, they are charged and prosecuted and they serve time for a very, this is an important issue to tackle. But that is not what's happening with all of the seafarers. We have reports of 80 Filipino seafarers in Florida, that the same thing has happened. Another group of about 20 from Royal Caribbean have reached out to us, as well as this happening in the Great Lakes. So it's really a trend that's happening, and we want the Philippine government to fully investigate and to advocate for their rights, that they should be, one, if there is suspicion, that they go through a process where they have due process.
Are you making any headway, though, with representations made with Philippine government officials based in the U.S., like our embassy, the consulate?
Well, since we had the press conference on Sunday in Virginia, there has been movement. So there are workers in the Philippines who have been directly contacted by the new Office of Migrant Workers. And it seems that they are starting to move and investigate here on the U.S. side as well. And as you showed with Congressman Bobby Scott, there is also movement from the U.S. government to investigate this as well.
Is there any way to have any redress from the U.S. government? What kind of case can these seafarers file?
Well, we're fully exploring the different legal aspects. It is very difficult once your visa is revoked, but there are ways for having them taking back that revocation. And so that's what we want to see. We want to see full restitution of immigration status so that the workers can work again.
Yes, because they're being deprived of the opportunity to work.
That's right. And they've invested a lot. They've spent a lot of money and invested a lot in trainings and certifications and background checks to be able to get these jobs. And so now they're being put into financial dire straits by being so abruptly and unfairly, unjustly deported.
And other than this case of the seafarers with Carnival Cruise Line, Aki, are there any like pressing cases that you're also working on with regard to Filipino immigrants or some such?
Well, we definitely have seen that there are Filipinos who had cases that were administratively closed and resolved even over a decade ago that are now being reopened by this administration. And there are individuals who are complying, going into check-ins with immigration as they're supposed to, and then being picked up outside of courthouses, as well as, with these sweeping raids in Los Angeles, Filipinos were very scared because we even saw ICE outside of Seafood City markets.
Or even church, I understand.
Even churches, yes, and outside of schools who are having graduations. So it's really affected all of our communities here in Los Angeles.
Well, Aki, On deportation, U.S. ambassador or Philippine ambassador to the U.S., Babe Romualdez, did say already that the Philippine government is willing to accept Filipinos who will be facing immigration charges. And it's good because they won't be sent to a third country anymore. How is the Filipino-American community reacting to that?
Well, it is one relief because that is a big worry that they could be sent to third countries. However, it doesn't totally allay their fears because even if there is a willing country, we can't predict what this administration and ICE and the Department of Homeland Security are doing. So many of the things that they're doing are just inhumane. Even the detention conditions are inhumane. A lot of times we're seeing they're overcrowded. People don't have their own beds. They go for long times without sufficient food and water or access to medical care. We've had an individual farm worker just recently passed away in the Adelanto Immigration Center, and people are, being subject to it would be considered torture in other situations where they're cranking up the air conditioning very high, so it's very hard for them to sleep, waking them up in the middle of the night. So being detained and deported is really everyone is very afraid of it, and even legal permanent residents and citizens are being caught up in these raids.
And with that, we thank you for your time. That was Filipino Workers Center of Southern California Executive Director Aquilina Soriano Verzosa. Maraming salamat.
And for our big picture tonight, Alagang Kapatid Foundation has started helping out our kababayans affected by the monsoon flooding. They brought their food truck to Commonwealth Avenue in Quezon City and distributed hot porridge to stranded passengers, motorists, and even traffic enforcers and TNVS riders. The people's smiles say it all. More of our affected kababayans could use some help during these tough times. For those who would like to contribute, we're flashing the bank accounts for your cash donations. And you can also scan the QR code via the Maya app. Meanwhile, in-kind donations are also accepted at Alagang Kapatid's drop-off points in 762 Quirino Highway, Barangay San Bartolome, Novaliches City, or here at the TV5 Media Center, Reliance, Corner Sheridan, Mandaluyong. Right, and that's it for the Big Story this rainy Tuesday. Thanks for watching.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
We'll be back here tomorrow at 7:30. Keep safe and have a good night.